Welcome back to the GCN Tech Clinic, where I answer and solve, or at least try to, your tech-related bike problems that you submit, of course, down there in the comments section below. So if you've got a problem, make sure I know about it. So get involved down there. Let's crack on then with the first question this week, and it comes in from Peter Lethbridge, who says he has an issue with his Ultegra group set, that it won't go into the smallest cog at the back when the pedals are under load. It's fine when it's in the work stand, and if Peter reduces the cable tension, the gears then become out of index, basically. Any ideas? Right then, Peter, it does sound like possibly you've got a little bit of flex going on down there, because when you're in the smallest sprocket, so the highest gear in effect, you are generally putting quite a bit of torque through the pedals, so maybe you're flexing it a little bit, and actually you need to look at that rear derailleur slightly. So what are we going to do? Firstly, unclamp the cable and then make sure that the upper pulley wheel is actually far enough over. If anything, possibly a little bit further to the outside of the frame. So a little bit to the right of the smallest sprocket down there if you're looking at the bike from behind. Reclamp the cable and then re-index those gears. Hopefully that will see you right. It has happened actually to me in the past when the gears aren't set up just exactly perfect, and yet when you are laying down a lot of torque, the frame is under a lot of load down there, so it is something to be aware of. Alternatively, another problem that it could be that's causing it is actually that your rear skewer is done up slightly too tight, and in doing so the rear derailleur is actually being pushed over slightly inwards. So the best thing to do there would actually be, when setting up your gears, actually do it with the wheel in the dropout as tight as what you would be using it during your ride. I hope that all makes sense. Next question this week comes in from Frank B. Greco Jr. That is an excellent name. I'd like to have John Cannings Jr. after my name. Anyway, now Frank's problem is that he wants to use some heat shrink to clean up the front end of the bike, specifically on the cables. And what diameter heat shrink should Frank get? Look at bundling together 2 Shimano sized cables per heat shrink cable, so a brake and a shifter. Right then, Frank, nice work there. I love a clean front end on a bike. So those outer cable diameters, you're looking at 4 and 5 millimeter with Shimano. So with them combined, that's 9 millimeters. So your heat shrink, you're going to look for something probably between 12 and 16 millimeters in diameter. Therefore, they're going to be nice and pretty snug to start with, and you're not going to have to heat up that heat shrink too much, importantly. I love a bit of heat shrink on a bike, so make sure you upload a picture once you've done it to our uploader tool down there in the description, and who knows, maybe you'll make it into the GCN Tech show on the screw riding upgrades by upgrades. Next up is Tom Vert. Now, Tom Vert has recently switched from a bike with 105 R5800 to a Canyon Endurace with Ultegra R8000. Lovely bit of upgrade there. Ever since, though, he's got quite a bit of chain noise and the cricket sound while pedalling. So, for those of you who don't know what a cricket sounds like, it's a bit of a ticking noise, I guess. That's the easiest way to describe it. I believe the ticking noise of a cricket is because they rub their legs together. I don't know though. Now, it seems to come from the crank area. Now, Tom Vert has tried cleaning and lubricating the chain and indexing the front derailleur, but no solution yet. Any ideas to proceed with? Right then, Tom Vert, first up, remove your pedals, clean the threads, clean the axles as well of the pedals, and then using either grease or anti-seize, refit them up to the correct torque. While you're at it as well, take out the chainring bolts and also either use anti-seize or grease on them too. And hopefully, once you've torqued those up, that will actually reduce, or I hope, remove that cricket sound. Alternatively, it could be a bottom bracket, but I reckon it's probably your pedals. So give that a go and let me know what it was. Next question comes in from The Dream Life of Grace Bell 08. I do wonder sometimes where these usernames come from. Anyway, I digress. Question is, hi John, I have a 50 to 34 tooth chain set and 11 to 28 tooth cassette on Dura-Ace Di2 9000. Now, the Dream Life of Grace Bell 08 is planning on doing some classic climbs with the Pyrenees next summer. I'm very jealous. I do like the Pyrenees. Feel free to invite me. Now, the Dream Life's question is, could they run an 11 to 32 tooth cassette on the rear, by adjusting the B screw on the rear derailleur, similar to what my colleague Oliver Bridgewood did on his Everesting challenge. He is aware though that Shimano does not recommend this. Thanks, Martin. Right then, Martin. Yes, it will work. It is a bit of a bodge or a hack. I know some people have actually removed that B tension screw, flipped it around and reinserted it from the other side just to get a little bit more adjustment. However, an alternative to doing that would to be actually buy a derailleur hanger extender. They're about $2, £2, €2 from sites like eBay, and what that is going to do is actually lower your rear derailleur by about 2 centimeters, which is enough to actually accommodate those extra teeth in there. I actually managed to use one on a 1x conversion hack I did and fit a 36 tooth lowest sprocket with a short cage rear derailleur, so it's certainly possible and is an option there for you too. Right, now we've got a question that's come in from Edgar. Edgar wants to invest in a power meter for next season. Edgar's currently running a Shimano 105 5700 crankset and Shimano 105 in the rear. Now, Edgar's looking at the 4i Precision 105 5800 one-sided power meter. Will this work together with the 5700 crankset, or should Edgar change the crankset to the 5800 to match up? Edgar, nice to hear from you, my friend. Now, that will match up absolutely fine because the splines on both the crank and also the spindle on those two chain sets are perfectly interchangeable because, well, they're the same. So yes, it will work. The only thing you need to consider is will your own OCD, so how fussy you are really about those things matching up perfectly in terms of aesthetics, because they do look slightly different, the two chain sets. Really, yeah, if you're going to be fussed or not. To be honest, you're probably not, because it's not that often we actually stare down whilst riding along and look at our cranks. Right, Bill Boyce is next on the agenda this week. Bill Boyce asks, is it possible to buy a disc-specific frame and upgrade Bill's rim brake E-tap to disc by purchasing new levers and wheels? Right then, Bill, yeah, it's certainly possible. You will need new calipers too, obviously, because, well, your rim brake calipers, they're not going to work. You will also need the hoses and things like that. But yeah, it's totally possible. And I'll tell you what, Bill, this is a classic example of something that should be sent in to the screw riding upgrades by upgrades on the GCN Tech show. So you do that, and I reckon you'll make it in. So I mean, you've got to do it, haven't you? Who doesn't want to be featured in that? Go ahead, do it, submit it using the uploader tool. Next up is Trit Gerres, who wants to know, is it possible to pair mechanical Ultegra shifters with a mountain bike rear derailleur and still use a 2x group at the front of the bike? Good question. Now, it's not possible to use a mountain bike rear derailleur with Shimano drop bar shifters. The reason being the two component sets, so mountain bike parts from Shimano and road bike parts from Shimano, actually use different amounts of cable pull ratio. There is a way around this though, and it's from a company called Wolftooth, who makes something called a Tanpan connector. And that slots into your rear derailleur where the outer cable would go, and your outer cable slots into that. And it's on a slight curve basically, and that amends the amount of cable pull that is provided from your shifter. Kind of like magic. Pretty cool magic, I think. So you can actually use a mountain bike rear derailleur with drop bar shifters from Shimano. How cool is that? Now, another option you could do is to fit a derailleur hanger extender, also available from Wolftooth, and other options online too. And that just moves down the rear derailleur a couple of centimetres and will allow your rear derailleur to accommodate a few more teeth at the rear. When I say a few more, I managed to get a 28 tooth rear derailleur capacity to actually go up to 36 tooth. So normally it handled a 28 tooth sprocket, I got 36. So it's an option for you there too. Next question is another mountain bike and road bike compatibility question. This one is from The Belly 925. Now, The Belly wants to know which Di2 mountain bike components are compatible with the road Di2 offerings. Now, The Belly 925 has read that some teams change their Dura-Ace rear derailleur for something that can accommodate a larger cassette. Right, bit of a can of worms this one, because firmware or software of a part could actually be changed with quite literally the press of a button at Shimano HQ if they so wanted. However, the last time I actually played around with this, I plugged a Shimano mountain bike rear derailleur into my road bike setup it didn't work. I unplugged the front derailleur and it worked. So if you want to use it with a 1x setup, that mountain bike rear derailleur will be absolutely fine. As a 2x setup with a road front derailleur, it won't work. I'm sure someone out there could hack this probably with some electronics wizardry, but I'm not an electrician. Now, you mentioned about some teams changing parts around to accommodate different cassettes. Yes, a few years back, a company called K-Edge were making different cages for rear derailleurs to allow them to use bigger cassettes at the rear. Pretty sure it's discontinued now. You might be able to find one if you hunt around online. However, most rear derailleurs, they tend to actually be able to accommodate slightly larger rear cassette than what they officially say. You could run the risk of actually dropping your chain. Ollie recently, as someone's already mentioned, did use a 32 tooth cassette on a rear derailleur that was officially only meant to accommodate a 28 tooth cassette. So yeah, there you are. There's some food for thought there. Final question this week comes in from Jerry Boy, who again has got a Di2 compatibility question. Honestly, I think I should bring in a multimeter and things like that, an electrician's kit, because that's what it's turning into. I absolutely love these sorts of questions. Right, Jerry Boy, final one this week. Jerry Boy has recently bought the R8050 Di2 front and rear derailleur and a new 11-speed rear cassette. Now, Jerry Boy thought that everything would be plug and play, so just plug it all in and it would work fine with the 6770 shifters. Nothing happens. How can they get it to recognise the rear derailleurs? Right, Jerry, the good news is you are okay there for compatibility because the brain of the system, if you like, is actually in the rear derailleur and front derailleur rather than the shifters. So those 6770 shifters will work with 10 and 11 speed group sets that it's compatible with in terms of the actual ports for the Di2 cables. Now, what I'd suggest you do, because nothing at the moment, like you say, is working, nothing's happening, unplug everything and re-plug it back in. It sounds a little bit silly, and whenever IT technician says, have you tried turning it off and back on again? I always laugh, I do it and it works. So give that a go and hopefully it'll recognise it. Alternatively, you could also try upgrading the firmware using the SMPCE1 or the SMBCR2, I think it's called, which are the plug and play sort of bits which go in. One plugs into the junction box and the other one plugs into the components themselves. I can't remember which way around they do it, but actually upgrade the firmware because maybe something is not talking to the other one in quite the correct way. Electronics can be a bit of a minefield, but I absolutely love them on bikes, so I'm not going to go too harsh on them, to be perfectly honest. Right, I hope that I was able to answer your question this week on the GCN Tech Clinic. I absolutely love getting stuck into them. If not, leave it for me down there in the comment section down below and I'll do my very best to answer it in a future upcoming episode. Now, remember as well to like and share this video with your friends. Give it a big old thumbs up. Share it with a friend who has one of these problems I've just mentioned so they can get rolling as soon as possible. Don't forget to check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. We have a whole heap of goodies for you to spend your pocket money on. And now, for another great video, this time, the latest Maintenance Monday. How about clicking just down here?